History has been made after the Prime Minister took part in a much-anticipated bilateral meeting with China's President Xi Jinping overnight, this being the first time an Australian PM has visited China in 7 years. Joining us live now is the founder and director of Strategic Analysis Australia, Michael Shoebridge. Michael, it is good to see you. So, at the moment, a lot of talk, no concrete action, but is this all part of the dance?
Well, Pete, it's good that a meeting happened, but it is just a meeting. And there's been an air of unreality about Mr Albanese's visit. You wouldn't know that foreign businesses and executives are under increasing surveillance and risk of arrest. You hear Mr Albanese talking up trade when most major economies are trying to reduce their trade dependence on China. You just wonder how the visit, so focused on trade, could ignore all the other elephants in the room.
Oh, is this all part of the price of admission, though, Michael? You know, you just tread softly to get the relationship back on track, to get dialogue going, and then the hard stuff perhaps comes later when he's out of the country?
I don't think so. I think the hard stuff started before the visit. Australia had to give up 2 successful World Trade Organization cases. We've had to be silent as the Chinese military harass our defence force operating peacefully in the region. So we've already paid a price. But you're right, there are bigger tests to come because China is an aggressive, destabilising power.
Yeah. Anthony Albanese was asked twice whether he trusted Xi Jinping, and he squibbed the question both times. I mean, is that in itself an answer, that he doesn't trust Xi Jinping, and he's right not to trust Xi Jinping?
Well, of course, Pete, because Xi's words do not match his actions. He talks about peaceful development, common interests and mutual respect. There's been no mutual respect demonstrated by China punishing Australia for saying simple things like, how did a pandemic start? No trust in the trade relationship. They've broken the agreement. So yes, the words of Xi don't match his actions, but I think there's a risk Mr Albanese thinks he's come to some deep personal understanding, and that's a delusion leaders often have when they look into each other's steely eyes.
Yeah, China has punched us in the nose before, big time. Do you think they'd hesitate to do it again?
No, I don't, and I think Mr Albanese understands that, and that's why he's been silent about some of the things China's still doing. Wholesale espionage and aggressive confrontation with our defence force.
And things aren't going to change, are they, when it comes to Taiwan, when it comes to the South China Sea, like you referred to, like when it comes to, you know, espionage or cyber warfare?
No, there's a schizophrenic track to all this, which is back to my point about the unreality of this visit and the alleged stable relationship. What are we doing in AUKUS and with our US alliance and our deepening defence ties with Japan, South Korea and the Philippines? We're trying to deter an aggressive China. And that's going to keep crowding in to these lovely meetings.
There has been an invitation for Xi Jinping to come out to Australia to visit at some point. Would you expect him to take up that offer?
Well, I think he should think twice about it. I think it was an overeager, maybe exuberant act from Mr Albanese, who seemed quite euphoric about the visit. I think Xi would have a much more jarring visit than he did in 2014. He'd be feted by corporate elites and he'd be treated with suspicion by the greater Australian population.
Just finally, on trade, I mean, Don Farrell refers to the fact that there had been $20 billion worth of trade blocks in place. $19 billion worth of those trade blocks has since been removed, leaving $1 billion left, notably wine, beef, lobster. I mean, that in itself, is that a success?
I think deepening our trade dependence on China when everybody else sees the risk of doing that is a fundamental error. The real effort should be on diversifying our trade away from China, not desperately trying to get back into a position where they can punish us more.
Yep, to learn a lesson. Michael Shoebridge, thanks as always.